What's it like working on this franchise, and how do you feel it's evolved over the years, especially in this, now the fourth iteration?
So we started as a mild playground for destruction, and we ended up being the ultimate destruction sandbox. So I would say the way it has evolved is a really found and married an identity that in the first episode of the series we're just into that.
I had a lot of fun destroying stuff earlier when I was playing the level with the tornado and everything. How often, where do you craft these ideas from? These ideas of destruction? They just come to you in your head at night, or where does it come from?
No. It's so the bohem idea of the creator gets the crazy idea at night, and then gets Monday morning into the studio and steer the whole studio working on the crazy idea. It's quite far from reality. So I tell you how the tornado and the extreme weather specifically were born. So we're approaching a new game, Just Cause 4. We had the luxury between starting to work on the game to actually have a buffer time since the other game was released. That buffer time was time that we were employing to work on Just Cause 3 downloadable content. This means that we had the opportunity to watch a lot of the videos that players were creating with Just Cause 3, to read about their commentary, their feedback, along with the reviews from the journalists. And you know what? Everybody loved the sandbox. Everybody loved the physics. Then at the same time it happens that some time had elapsed. We got a new generation of console that is quite mature now. We've got a new engine, so we got more firepower. And the question comes, what's the new thing that we're gonna do? So let's think about what our heart is. It's physics. So is there anything that we can add, or a way that we can evolve the way that the physics works in Just Cause? And we had different prototypes. We tried different things. I'm not going into details, otherwise I speak for 30 minutes. I think I'm already going long. Anyway, so we thought about prototyping wind. Now, whereas in your run-of-the-mill open world, wind, it's mostly a cosmetic addition, it's there to make vegetation sway, to create a certain atmosphere. In a game where you spend 50% of your time either in wingsuit or parachute, here it is that wind becomes quite a meaningful element. So we started with those prototypes, and it was very, very fun and nice to glide around, having the occasional boost of wind when in wingsuit, or just leaving the wind carry you around when you were in parachute, right? It was nice, it was cool. However, it was not over the top, so it was not Just Cause yet. So there the question became, how do we make wind over the top? Tornado! Okay, but a tornado is not enough, so what do? Extreme weather to occur. And that's how the idea for extreme weather was born and brought to flesh.
Does the ability to have pretty much, you can add anything into the game, I feel now these days, and does knowing that actually stifle you in some way creatively, because now I can do anything, and yet you have so many options that it becomes a burden, so to speak? And how often do you need to get something approved as the director still, or you can just add anything?
Okay, so these are actually three questions in one, or better, I have three answers to answer your long questions. First of all, I think this is a little bit a romantic view of these times. It's not true that we can do everything we want. There are compromises to be taken at each and every step of the way. You are indeed a good developer when you're able to craft good illusions so that you do not see those compromises. You believe that we could do everything we wanted and we choose to go that direction, but it's not true. So we are still not in that realm where everything is permitted and you really do not have limits. So things like memory management, overheating of the CPU or whatever else are things that you need to keep into consideration. So there are choices that we take every day, and each and every developer on the team, I'm sure, it would have loved to be able to pour more into the game, be it a new mechanics, be it a higher resolution for a certain type of terrain, etc., 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 etc. Now, going into the hypothetical world where you could do everything, yes, that's renowned. Creative people are usually scared by the white sheet, okay, when you have really no boundaries and nothing. So where do I go? At the point, either you have some demon inside you that show you the way because there is something that you really, really want and you go that direction, or a brief surely helps. And I am born as a game designer, actually. As a game designer, we thrive in limitation, because what we do is exactly creating systems that expand your vocabulary, the amount of possibility of things that you can express within a well-defined frame. Going to the last part, whether do I have to seek for approvals? We are a developer, we are Avalanche Studios, and with this game we're partnering with Square Enix. So Square Enix is our publisher, and those are the people who are actually funded the game. So for sure there was a whole lot of interest from their part that we needed to fulfill. One of those that's kind of notable, we would like with Just Cause 4 to actually expand the audience for this game and get a little bit out of the sandbox hardcore niche to go a little bit more mass market. And to this end, we structure all the system of the game, so there are multiple levels of reading, if you want. If it was a movie, the way that I would put it. So you can just play the game and enjoy the primal pleasure of destruction or following a storyline and so on, or you can go bonkers in pure Just Cause fashion and create flying tanks Just Cause.
When you watch people play the game, how do they usually play it so far in Gamescom and everywhere else?
So the Gamescom or E3 or even where we are at today, those are a very specific type of events where you guys have like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, so you don't end up doing much. I'm happy that I always see a big smile in your faces, so usually the whole of the 20 minutes is laughing and it's having fun, it's feeling wonder what you can do with the game. But where I really got a lot of pleasure is when we do playtest. So right, as developers we spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day always with the same game. We say that we get into a jar, and when you are inside the jar you don't see outside it anymore, so you don't know how somebody who's never seen the game before is gonna play. So what do? We organize these playtests. So we have special rooms with one-way through mirrors, and players who've never played the game actually playing from the beginning as a player who played the game at its place. So they don't have 20 minutes, like 2 days, 3 days. And there, with Just Cause in particular, the criterion that I got for me is the moment that I see a player pulling off a stunt or doing something that I had not thought about before, that's when I know that I have a good Just Cause in my hands.
When a level's narrative isn't quite working as you plan, do you believe in starting all over or refining it until it is good?
This is hard to say. It's very hard to generalize because it depends from what it is that does not work. That's very important. So what actually, personally I got a lot of learning from the things that didn't work in my previous game, or sincerely in the previous generation of, say, open worlds into this case, because we are not the only one. The open worlds are actually getting more and more popular, and there are a wealth of developers that's making them, and during a certain batch we very often end up making the same mistakes, and you can see that through a spectrum of different open worlds, or get into the same achievements. And it's cool actually to see a whole industry. I consider this quite an important bastion of pop culture now, the open world phenomenon. And if you think how it's also pillaging from other media, like there is what's the name? Man, I gave it too many interviews today. So, no one, but the pirate. Oh my God, the guy with the pirate hat that eats the gum through it. One Piece. There is a One Piece open world coming out, right? So it's quite interesting to see how we contaminate, cross-pollinate each other, and we contribute to a global advance into the medium that also pass, especially for these specific problems, right? How do we make a narrative that work? How do we make a player how do we make player actually be invested into this narrative within the context of a world that by definition is open and lets you do the act that you want to do?
And my last question, if you had to describe the game in one sentence for players who've never had the joy of trying out Just Cause 4 before, what would you say?
I say, embrace the pleasure of fooling around. This is the only game, right? The only game I knew where you can spend 2 hours into it, do crazy thing, not progress by a single inch into the main progression of the game, and that's okay. You've probably played it the way that it's meant to be played.
Awesome. Thank you.